The story begins with a reporter giving a report about the Black Dragon's failed attempt to clear the 40th floor of the tower. However, the camera shifts to the Flame Emperor, who has just returned after successfully clearing the 40th floor by himself. The reporter approaches the Flame Emperor, praising him for his remarkable accomplishment, and mentioning how he single-handedly defeated all the monsters. As the reporter speaks, the Flame Emperor suddenly grabs the microphone from his hand, expressing his frustration with his nickname. He loudly exclaims that they should do something about the lousy name, and suggests that he should be called the Flame Retard instead. Meanwhile, a gloomy guy watches the interview with envy, wishing he could speak his mind without being looked down upon. In the comment section of the interview, one person mentions that the Flame Emperor should watch his language, since he is being watched by the entire world. Another person defends the Flame Emperor, stating that his personality doesn't matter because he is already a legendary hunter. However, the gloomy guy in the comment section continues to express his desire to be like the Flame Emperor, but is ignored by others. Frustrated, he keeps typing that he wants to be like the Flame Emperor, admiring his skills and wealth, and feeling envious. He thinks to himself that in a world like a novel, the Flame Emperor would be the main character while he would be an extra character. The reporter then asks the Flame Emperor for some last words of inspiration for the viewers, requesting a quick tip on the secret of his success. The Flame Emperor agrees, sighs, and says that he will say it only once, urging everyone to pay attention. The gloomy guy, fully engrossed in his laptop, eagerly listens to what the Flame Emperor has to say. The Flame Emperor states that those destined to succeed will succeed, and if someone does succeed, they should not start a fight with him or he will kill them. After making this statement, the Flame Emperor turns his back and walks away, leaving the reporters calling after him, questioning the meaning behind his words. The gloomy guy, filled with anger and tears, slams his laptop shut. He says that the Flame Emperor infuriates him, believing that the Flame Emperor's success allows him to look down on people. He feels as though the Flame Emperor looks down on him personally, not just the reporter. He bitterly expresses his wish to have the Flame Emperor's talent, as it would free him from living in a tiny apartment and being looked down upon. In frustration, he angrily tears off a newspaper from the wall, declaring that he wants to be like the Flame Emperor, or, at the very least, have his own unique skills. Suddenly, the room fills with a bright light, capturing the gloomy guy's attention. He looks up and sees a glowing card, something he has seen countless times in videos. Could it be a skill card? He wonders to himself. A blue window pops up, stating that the tower is astonished by his envy and has granted him a skill. Confused, the gloomy guy realizes that this is different from the skill awakening ability. He decides not to get caught up in the wording and stands up, realizing that this is the moment he had wished for. He stretches out his hand to grab the gold card, feeling that the skill is greater than a ranked skill. As he grabs the card, a yellow window appears, describing the skill he has just received. It states that he can copy the skill of the enemy that kills him and make it his own, but he must die in the process. Overwhelmed, he shouts, questioning what kind of skill this is. The first appearance of the tower on Earth out of nowhere, so people who doesn't have anything to lose start to enter the tower. Each floor of the tower was filled with different kinds of monsters from other worlds. As news of the tower spread, those who had heard about it started to gather there. During a live broadcast, a man was being interviewed. He shared his experience of witnessing the Flame Emperor's fiery battles in the hunting grounds. He described it as a mesmerizing dance, reminiscent of Nataraja. The gloomy guy in the bar asked the barkeeper to change the channel, uninterested in the conversation. The barkeeper asked why, mentioning that it was getting interesting. He then questioned if the gloomy guy didn't like the Flame Emperor. The gloomy guy clarified that it wasn't about that, but rather how some people lived their lives in such a way while others had to face misfortune. Thinking the gloomy guy was drunk, the barkeeper tried to ignore him. However, the gloomy guy insisted that he listen, explaining that he had acquired an S+ rank skill card the previous day, but the skill turned out to be a dangerous one that could kill the user. He couldn't report it to the Hunter Association and expressed his frustration. Slamming the table, he admitted that he was too ashamed to share this worthless skill with anyone. Later, the gloomy guy walked the streets in a drunken state. As he glanced at the blue window displaying the top 3 hunters of the day, his head felt like it was about to explode. Suddenly, a scream echoed from an alley from his hiding spot. The gloomy guy observed the Flame Emperor and the Saintess engaged in a heated conversation. The Saintess pleaded with the Flame Emperor to step aside, but he accused her of being a skilled actor, making it seem like she is the victim. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a vial of poison, claiming that he had poisoned the Saintess' drink, which was the same poison she had intended for him. Shocked, the Saintess tried to explain that it was all a misunderstanding and that she wanted to form a team with him to raid the tower. The Flame Emperor believed that he had thought the same. The Saintess pleaded with the Flame Emperor to allow them to settle the misunderstanding. In the corner, a gloomy individual covered his mouth, trying to process what was happening. He wondered if the two of them were in a romantic relationship. Questioning why a couple would engage in such a conversation, the Flame Emperor grabbed the Saintess by the neck, stating that while talking things out sounded nice, he would be the one to determine the rules for the conversation. The gloomy individual, filled with suspicion, speculated that it seemed like a conversation between someone who wanted to kill and someone who wanted to avoid being killed. The Flame Emperor informed the Saintess that he would be the one asking the questions, and she only needed to respond with a nod. He boasted about his lie detection skill, warning her not to dare deceive him. The Flame Emperor added that if she was honest during their conversation, he might consider giving her the antidote. The Flame Emperor began by asking who had ordered her to kill him, and if it was the Black Dragon Witch. The Saintess refused to provide an answer. The gloomy guy, remembering what the man in the interview had said about the kind of hero humanity needed, the Flame Emperor bid the Saintess farewell and set the Saintess on fire, causing her to scream in pain. Witnessing this, the gloomy guy couldn't comprehend how someone like the Flame Emperor could be hailed as a hero when he was a murderer and a psychopath. Terrified, the gloomy guy ran for his life. In his panic, he accidentally stepped on a bottle, creating a noise that caught the Flame Emperor's attention. With a sinister smirk, the Flame Emperor approached, stating that he thought he had cleared the area. As the gloomy guy desperately continued running, he wondered if the Saintess was not the first victim of the Flame Emperor's violence, and how many lives he had taken, perhaps dozens or even hundreds. Eventually, the gloomy guy tripped and fell to the ground. The Flame Emperor approached the gloomy guy, holding a flaming spear and laughing maniacally. The gloomy guy pleaded for his life, but the Flame Emperor rebuked him, saying he shouldn't have run. The gloomy guy begged for mercy, and the Flame Emperor asked if he had witnessed anything. Trembling with fear, the gloomy guy denied seeing anything. The Flame Emperor insisting that he was at the right place and the right time and saw nothing. The Flame Emperor found his response convincing and remarked that if he were a bit more foolish, he would have believed it. The gloomy guy promised not to tell anyone, and the Flame Emperor warned him that if he didn't want to end up like the Saintess, he should answer truthfully. He asked who had sent him and if it was the Black Dragon. In his thoughts, the gloomy guy realized how crazy the situation had become, and he urged the Flame Emperor to use his lie detector skill, recalling when the Flame Emperor had mentioned possessing such a skill during the conversation with the Saintess. Trembling, the gloomy guy explained that if the Flame Emperor used the lie detector, he would know the truth. Confused, the Flame Emperor dismissed it as nonsense. Undeterred, the gloomy guy continued, acknowledging that the Flame Emperor had killed the Saintess due to his suspicions. The Flame Emperor argues that the Saintess had attempted to kill him and claimed that if he hadn't killed her first, she would have killed him the next day. Bewildered, the gloomy guy questioned how the Flame Emperor knew that, to which the Flame Emperor cryptically replies that he had his ways. The Flame Emperor places his hand on the gloomy guy's head and conclude that he was not lying. The gloomy guy expresses his gratitude for being believed, but suddenly the Flame Emperor's hand ignited in flames. He declared that the gloomy guy had seen too much and needed to die before he spread the information. The Flame Emperor revealed his name as Yusuha and bid the gloomy guy farewell. A flashback showed the gloomy guy as a child, being called Gongya by a man who encouraged him to become someone great like Confucius. The gloomy guy replied respect with a yes, director. As he lay on the floor in a black void, deep in thought, he expressed his desire not to die in such a manner. Suddenly, a blue window appeared, indicating that the condition of his skill had been fulfilled by his death. The window displayed the skills he had copied from Hunter Yusuha. With tears in his eyes, the Gonja opens his eyes and fixate on the golden card before him. The window instructs him to select a skill. Stretching his hand forward, he grabs the golden card and, in an instant, teleported 24 hours back before he was killed on his bed. Confused, he stood up and glanced at his laptop, where a live report showed the Flame Emperor. Gongja, bewildered, shouted out what is going on. Confused and disoriented, Kim Gongja tried to make sense of what is happening. He reached for his phone and realized that the comments were the same as the previous day. Confused, he wondered why everything seemed to be repeating itself. Then a sudden realization struck him, as he recalled how the Flame Emperor had killed him and how he had obtained his skill. Gongja opens up the skill card window, and two cards appeared before him. One displayed his main skill, while the other shows the skill he had copied from the Flame Emperor after his death. To his amazement, the skill's ability allowed the user to automatically return back to 24 hours before their death while retaining their memories and skill points. It dawned on him that this was the secret to becoming a legendary hunter. As he contemplated his newfound ability, Gongya remembered why the Flame Emperor had killed the Saintess. It was because she had planned to poison him the next day. Then Gongja's attention was drawn to the live broadcast, where the Flame Emperor's voice echoed. His anger surged within him, and he thought to himself, let's see who's going to die this time. Just then, a cry for help filled the air as someone shouted fire. In a rush, Gongja hurriedly left his room and witnessed several hunters running toward the source of the fire, attempting to extinguish it while joining the effort. Gongya checked the time on his phone and realized it was close to the moment when he had been drunk the previous time. He quickly figured out that the Flame Emperor had started the fire to destroy evidence of his murderous action. Amidst the chaos, the Black Witch, the leader of the Black Dragon Guild, the Master Alchemist, the leader of the healing and pharmaceuticals, and the Paladin, the leader of the Vigilance, vigilante, arrived at the scene. They were all trying to take control of the situation, coordinating their efforts to manage the fire and its aftermath. As everyone scrambled to put out the fire, the master alchemist voiced concern over the absence of the saintess, noting that she was never late during emergencies. The paladin speculated that she might have other plans, possibly a date with the Flame Emperor. The master alchemist expressed her unease towards the Flame Emperor, finding something about him creepy. Just then, the Flame Emperor made his grand entrance, demanding to know who was playing with fire without his permission. The paladin greeted him and thanked him for his arrival, inquiring if he could extinguish the flames. However, the Flame Emperor questioned what he would gain from it. Filled with anger, Gongja clenched his fist and seethed with frustration. He couldn't believe that the Flame Emperor dared to ask for a reward after the havoc he had wreaked. Like a deranged psychopath, the paladin reasoned that the Flame Emperor would gain public goodwill as the rank 1 hunter. But the Flame Emperor dismissed such concerns, declaring that he didn't do charity work. He turned his back and began to walk away as he passed Gongja, the only one aware of the Flame Emperor's true nature. As a cold-blooded murderer, Gongja felt a burning desire to kill him. With anger fueling his actions, Gongja broke free from those trying to restrain him and made a fierce dash toward the fire. As Gongja screamed in pain, feeling the searing heat of the flames engulfing his body, he held onto the belief that sacrificing himself was the only way to stop the monstrous Flame Emperor. Gongja found himself back in time, 24 hours before his death. A blue window appeared, informing him that there were no penalties for using the skill. Realizing that he needed to find a way to kill the Flame Emperor, Gongja understood that since both of them possessed the same skills, killing the Flame Emperor would be impossible, as he would always return 24 hours before his death. Gongja remembered an interview he had seen in the past, where the Flame Emperor mentioned awakening 11 years ago on June 7th when he was 21 years old. Gongja calculated that he needed to die 4,050 times to reach that specific day. Determined, he decided to stab himself 4,050 times, willing to endure the pain to go back to the past before the Flame Emperor acquired his skill card. After successfully traveling back to the past before the rise of the Flame Emperor, Gongja sighed, acknowledging the additional sacrifices he needed to make due to the breaks he had taken, and the time spent on his self-inflicted stabbings, and deterred by the challenges ahead. Gongja steeled himself, and made thorough preparations for his mission. With unwavering determination, he embarked on his quest, ready to hunt his first prey and alter the course of events. After reaching the Flame Emperor's apartment, Gongya meticulously memorized the daily routine of his target. He discovered that Flame Emperor typically woke up around 11 a.m. in the Frank dormitory. At 3 p.m., he would head to the second floor of the tower to hunt slime, often expressing frustration at the lack of challenge. Gongja overheard the Flame Emperor lamenting his desire for an S-rank skill card. Seizing the opportunity, Gongya devised a plan. He killed a red slime and used its remains to disguise himself, drenched in slime. He believes that someone like the Flame Emperor doesn't deserve an S-rank skill card. As the clock struck 5:31 p.m., the Flame Emperor made his way to the 6th floor, seeking solitude. Seizing the opportunity, Gongja approached him, using the red slime's blood as a disguise. He pleads to the Flame Emperor for help, claiming he had been attacked by wolves and desperately needs a healing potion. The Flame Emperor, with a skeptical look, asked Gongja how much he was willing to pay for the potion. Caught off guard, Gongja asked for clarification. The Flame Emperor scolded him, accusing Gongya of ruining his hunt and expecting him to give an expensive potion to a stranger. He taunted Gongya, claiming that he lacked morals. Undeterred, Gongja offers 20 gold coins for the potion. However, the Flame Emperor dismissed the amount, stating that Gongya didn't understand the severity of his situation. He questioned whether Gongja believed his life was worth only 20 gold coins. In an attempt to negotiate further, Gongya raises his offer to 40 gold coins. Flame Emperor, unyielding, demands everything Gongya had. Grabbing Gongya by the collar, he forcefully reached into his wallet and discovered it contained 60 gold coins. Annoyed by the amount, the Flame Emperor mocked Gongja, calling him poor and suggesting he carry more money around. Gongja calmly explained that the 60 gold coins were his entire saving. Placing his hand on Gongja's head, the Flame Emperor declared that he would spend the money well. Gongja's mind was flooded with scenes of the Flame Emperor's sinister actions. Gongja pleaded with the Flame Emperor to give him the potion, but the Flame Emperor refused, stating that after carefully considering the situation, he had decided not to let Gongja go. He believed that if Gongja were allowed to live, he might seek revenge. The Flame Emperor emphasizes the importance of living a life without worries and declares that Gongja, having seen his face, needs to die. As the Flame Emperor prepared to launch his attack, the Flame Emperor showing no mercy, the situation took a sudden turn. Gongja, realizing the true nature of the Flame Emperor, Gongja launched himself towards him, delivering a powerful blow to the gut. As the Flame Emperor struggled to maintain his posture, Gongja swiftly grabbed a knife and sliced his neck. Understanding the potential consequences, if the Flame Emperor were to awaken in his next life feeling threatened. Gongja made sure to properly send him off. He proceeded to stab the Flame Emperor, putting an end to his reign of terror, standing beside the lifeless body. Gongja couldn't help but wonder why the Flame Emperor had revealed his name before his demise. Having experienced countless deaths and iterations, Gongya finally grasped the significance of the Flame Emperor's action. Despite his heinous act, the Flame Emperor desired a fair and honorable duel. Preventing to be a knight, filled with rage, Gongya shouted out, condemning the Flame Emperor for attempting to assume a righteous stance. After killing countless innocent people. At that moment, red wolves appeared from the shadows, drawn by the scent of blood, and offered the Flame Emperor's corpse to the wolves. With a cold determination, Gongja walked away. The wolves eagerly devoured the remains of the Flame Emperor. After changing into fresh clothes, Gongya returned to the first floor, relieved that it seemed nobody suspected what had transpired. News is being broadcast detailing the failed raid on the 10th floor. In the bar shop, it served as a stark reminder of the significant impact his actions had already made. However, Gongya couldn't afford to be distracted by the news and decided to focus on celebrating his success. He opened up his skill card and admired its contents, only to realize that he lacked a combat skill. Reflecting on his desires, he questioned whether this longing was a manifestation of human greed. He closed the window. Gongja criticizes himself for being shameless for wanting more. Instead, he should consider the possibilities of his skill could offer. It appeared that things were finally looking up for him. However, amidst his thoughts, a man entered the bar and ordered a unique concoction, a mixture of milk, vodka, and sugar, preferably with honey instead, and he will paying generously for his drink. The white-haired man attracted attention and sparked conversations among the patrons. As he sat down on his seat, the white-bearded man was revealed to be Marcus Canterbury, also known as the Sword Saint. Despite his significant achievements, he had been forgotten by many during his 11-year absence. Once considered the true number one in the tower before the rise of the Flame Emperor, Marcus was renowned for his exceptional skills. He believed that this time the Sword Saint would once again claim the top position. Gongya speculated that Marcus possessed numerous S+ rank skills, far surpassing his own abilities. A sudden realization struck Gongja. His unique skill allowed him to copy the skills of other hunters, as long as he died by their hand. He wondered if he could even replicate the rank 1 skill. As Gongja browses through his phone, searching for information about the Sword Saint's abilities, he was disappointed to find no mention of his skill. Gongya couldn't help but think it would have been impressive if the Sword Saint had the same attention-seeking nature as the Flame Emperor. Suddenly, the Sword Saint shouts out, telling himself to be quiet, causing Gongya to flinch. The Sword Saint mumbled to himself, questioning whether he truly understood how it feels. Gongya turned his attention towards his phone, acknowledging the rumors he had heard about the Sword Saint. Talking to himself, he pondered if there was always something wrong with the rank 1 hunter. As Gongya continued browsing, he stumbled upon a comment that cautioned everyone against uttering specific words to the Sword Saint. The author of the article claimed to have witnessed it firsthand, as during a heated argument among hunters, one of them mentioned the Sword Saint's grandchildren, and in an instant, the Sword Saint swiftly sliced him. This caught Gongja's attention, and he decided he needed to test the rumored phenomenon. Meanwhile, the Sword Saint continued talking to himself, expressing frustration over his inability to drink vodka. He slammed the table, paid for his drink, and left the bar. The patrons let out a collective sigh of relief due to the tense atmosphere the Sword Saint had created. Gongja quickly paid for his drinks and followed after the Sword Saint, though he lost him in the crowd. Gongja easily spotted him thanks to his distinctive outfit. As Gongja continued to trail the Sword Saint, he grew excited about the prospect of acquiring the Sword Saint's skill for himself. Suddenly, the Sword Saint stopped in an isolated area and turned toward Gongja. He tells Gongja to come out, assuring him that nobody would know what happened there. Gongja was surprised at how the Sword Saint seemed to know his location. Gongja stepped out from behind the tree he had been hiding behind and apologized for his rudeness, expressing his desire to ask the Sword Saint for a favor. In response, the Sword Saint burst into laughter, questioning whether Gongja did a poor job following him deliberately to be noticed. He also wondered why Gongja, in such a creepy manner, was requesting a favor from an old man like him. Gongja was puzzled, realizing that the Sword Saint had misunderstood his intentions and believed that Gongja had intentionally allowed himself to be discovered. Gongja also noted that he was unarmed, while the Sword Saint gripping his sword as if he's ready to attack. Interrupting Gongja thought, the Sword Saint called him an amazing actor, commending his skills as a first-class assassin. Gongja was bewildered once again. Gongja pleaded, explaining that he didn't understand why he appeared as a first-class assassin and that he took pride in his ordinary appearance. In response, the Sword Saint placed his sword toward his face, revealing the darkness in his eyes. He yelled at Gongja to shut up. The Sword Saint claims that he possessed the ability to see how many people someone had killed. Gongja thought to himself that he had already killed the Flame Emperor, who would later become a monster, while he lacked excuses to offer the people of this timeline. He believed the Sword Saint would see a murder count of number 1 on his head. Gongja urged the Sword Saint Saint to listen, acknowledging that it might sound like an excuse, but he committed his acts for a good reason. He swore that he could justify his actions to the heavens. With a dark expression, Sword Saint gently removed his hat and expressed his disgust for Gongja. He called Gongja a devil who had senselessly murdered countless people, stating that he had not led a particularly honest life but had never committed such indiscriminate killings like Gongja. Gongja is confused by the accusation of mass murder, explaining that in his entire life he had only killed one person before. But the Sword Saint interrupted, accusing Gongja of shamelessly lying, and informed him that the number on his head was 4091. Gongja realized that, including himself and the Flame Emperor, he had killed himself 4090 times to reach the past. The Sword Saint then asked Gongya if the Black Dragon had sent him. In the eyes of the Sword Saint, Gongja is a mass murderer of the ages, responsible for the deaths of 4091 people. Gongja realized that this issue went beyond merely copying skills. In a desperate attempt to escape, Gongja fled, realizing that no matter when the Sword Saint encountered him, he would try to eliminate him. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. It will really be helpful, and comment down if you guys want part 2.